BBC News at 9 o'clock. A second Conservative candidate is under investigation by the Gambling Commission for allegations of betting on the date of the general election. It's not known when the bet was made or how much money was placed on it. Laura Saunders, who is standing in Bristol, is married to the party's director of campaign. A spokesperson for the Conservative Party said, "Oh, for fuck's sake." In his column in The Times this morning, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson wrote, "Honestly, I've got more chance of shagging Kylie Minogue than that lot have of getting re-elected." Nigel Farage has said that if his Reform Party are elected, they will lower the age where it is legal to purchase alcohol to 16, and make it illegal to be Michael Barrymore. A petition demanding that Brian Clough be made the England football team's manager has received over 11 million signatures. Mr. Clough, who is currently spending time being dead for tax purposes, was unavailable for comment. A lady from Stockport who fitted herself with a homemade contraceptive coil has announced that she is pregnant and expecting a baby in the spring. BBC News.
I think I mentioned this earlier. I bumped into the postman and he said there is a pile of post waiting at the post office box.
Okay, right, quick garden update before I go to work. Been chasing this all day. It's been a bit frustrating, to say the least. Right, well, I think we might be on the way. Tell you what, let me put you down. There you go. We might be on the way to solving it, and the way I did it was to talk directly with the gardener. So that's kind of cut the bullshit out of the loop. So in other words, what the letting agent has been saying one thing to the gardener and another thing to me, as I suspected might be happening. So by just talking directly between ourselves and then both individually talking with the agents, they've had to stop buggering about. So there's still an argument over the amount of money that's being paid and backdated money and this, that and the other, and there's going to be an argument going on. But hello, darling. Sorry I cut you off there. When I was talking in the garden, I suddenly realised that my neighbour was right the other side of the fence and could hear every word. And maybe I shouldn't worry about that. There shouldn't be a problem with me talking in my own garden, but, you know, partly it's a privacy thing, or how ridiculous is that, talking about being private when you're recording stuff that's going to go out onto public YouTube. And partly I'm just still bloody paranoid about disturbing them, even though it's the middle of the day in the garden. Silly. The problem is, darlings, brilliant day yesterday, and today, for whatever reason, my anxieties have been evident. I woke up worrying about stuff and just kind of been anxious all day, and I was looking forward to a really productive day in the cottage. I've done nothing. I've got nothing done. The one and only thing I did do was put the bin out. Look, there it is, my green bin. Yeah, I put that out. They were collected this morning. What a twat. So, there's a lovely sheep ears. Hello, darlings. So I can't remember how far I got telling you about the garden, but the guy's coming tomorrow, so we will see what tomorrow brings. But yeah, what a disappointment that my silly anxieties have kicked in today. Hey ho. Hey ho. What can you do? student and deliver pizzas. I'd like a little job in a local shop or something, or petrol station. Yeah, just something basic, 4 or 5 hours a day. Get a few more bob in, one less thing to stress about. And it's like sod's law that when you're having a bit of a down day, other things happen to really spark your anxieties even more. I've been trying to deal with the garden all day. That's been, oh God, that's got me stressed out. You know, the messages of doom from the bank and knowing I can't do anything about it. I haven't got any money to pay in, so what can I do? The things come in saying, you know, we're refusing this payment, we're refusing that payment. Sorry, can't help you. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, my electricity direct debit's gone up by 40 quid. Going out on the 27th. That's a treat. Hey ho. These little things are sent to try us. I must sign up for some, I don't know, Facebook groups or something for local jobs. Find a takeaway that's open during the day and I'll find something. Mustard's got the right attitude. Things have to be as bad as they can be so that something will come along and pick you back up and keep you going for a while. So get over, tosser. Thank God I've got work to go to. Now imagine if you have a day like that and then you've just got to sit at home with nothing but your own company, just feeling worse and worse and worse. I'll be alright by the time I get home. You can guarantee it. I've got my iPad with me. I can do some Thursday night. I can do some admin work at work. Have a laugh. It'll all be good by the end of the night. Oh, and then I've got live with the M11 tonight. That'll be fun. Right, and I'll just have to give myself a good talking to and catch up with all this stuff in the cottage. I haven't done the washing up or anything. And the day's done off, marched by quickly. It's going to be Sunday before you know it, and I've got a guest. I need to prepare the guest cupboard. I have been known to call it the guest suite in the past, which is a bit grandiose because, you know, it's the size of your average cupboard. So 2024 I shall keep it real and I shall only talk about the guest cupboard. Right, let's catch up with the news, see what's going on in the world.
Have cut a hole in the
What are you
pot to
doing,
get to
mate?
the base where the flowers are, and basically you did sexual reproduction with a paintbrush.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry,
so
madam.
we go with
What
a
are you doing,
paintbrush
madam?
that we stick in alcohol and pot, and then we just go there and brush against all the female flowers.
Oh, the news isn't on yet, is it? It's Thursday. I've gone to work a bit earlier. Oh, and is today the solstice or is it tomorrow? I always thought it was the 21st. But people are saying it's today. There's all sorts of stuff on Facebook. So I don't know. Today, tomorrow, either way, after tomorrow it's all downhill. Be bloody Christmas again before you know it. days, people used to write envelopes and stuff, didn't they, for tuppence an hour. I mean, I know there's OnlyFans, but I think we'll keep that as a last resort. Although that'd be bloody amazing. God, imagine if I could make a living just by showing off my feet on OnlyFans, peeling my sock off slowly. I'd love to do that. I wouldn't mind dealing with perverts at all. Oh, it's a thought. I've still never looked at OnlyFans. I should have a look at it out of interest, shouldn't I? Find out what it's all about. Maybe there is a niche for a fat old bloke taking his socks off. I do have nice feet. Nice high arch. She was nice.
It's extremely difficult. Making this area a litigious, contested area, I don't think it's going to help. And I think what we have to fall back on is what's really important in the pubs and bars and coffee houses around the city. And you might pick up some mood music about a trend in a market or in a commodity, and then you play bets. So I think it becomes, in terms of trying to regulate who's doing this and whether it's ethical, I think it's very much on the responsibility of the people taking the bets to recognise what's going on and change the odds accordingly. And I think we should rest back when it comes to the people who really matter on this, and that is the politicians. If they're the people leaking it or making bets, they're the people.
Hello darlings, just turn you around. Well, it is turning out to be a better evening as I hoped. Pardon me not actually looking at the camera, but I'm doors open, I'm about to have a fag. I'm having a cigarette break, darlings. Had a good old chat with the gardener. He rang up. Oh, we are dead tonight, by the way, absolutely dead. We've had 2 customers dining in, and we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 takeaways. I'm gonna have to do something. Oh, shouldn't be this quiet. Oh yeah, so long old chat with the gardener. So we know exactly what's going on. We're gonna have to try and work between us to stop the agents buggering things up. So yeah, there'll be more arguments to come, but at least he and I are on the same hymn sheet. Yeah, it's been a really productive evening. There are 4 or 5 things that I've sorted tonight that are real long-term niggles. More and more getting control of everything, getting all of the apps that I need and everything all on the iPad. So, you know, that's all good, that's all productive. I'm feeling a lot better about things. I'll be grand by the time I go home, darlings. Having a nice fag break now. It's I don't know what time it is. Just turn the radio on.
For example, I've been.
Oh, it's 25 to 9. So yeah, another hour and a half of admin, and it'll be time to go home and do. What day is it? Thursday. I can't believe I put the bloody bin out. What a twat. Yeah, Thursday Night Live. Look forward to that. Okay, let's get out of here, shall we? Now,
Boaty was created by Sapam Sanghera.
The big question is, I need to get back and set up a joint live. And because it's been dead, I haven't been to put petrol in. Now, do I wing it and try and get home on what I've got? Nip down and get petrol from Max tomorrow? do I stop and do a splash and dash on the way home? Oh, it's kind of on the top of the red. So I might try and wing it. What an absolutely crap night. Football, I suppose. England, by all accounts, it wasn't the best game in the world. I mean, obviously I don't watch the absolute rubbish, but I had a quick peek on Facebook and everybody said, oh god, this is bloody England rubbish, blah, blah, blah. It's coming home, it's coming home. No, it hasn't, it's buggered off. So, there we are. Right, let's catch up with the 10 o'clock news. Oh, and summer solstice. Apparently it's, I have heard something on the radio that it's a day early this year for some reason. And it's back to being the 21st next year. So, there we go. God knows, it's certainly light. Look at that. Just gone 10 o'clock.
Interestingly, Sir Keir Starmer was also asked about tuition fees actually, and asked about why he U-turned on his initial pledge to scrap them, and he said this was all about having to make difficult political choices, and that unfortunately there isn't the money to do all the things that he had initially wanted to do, but that he would instead prioritise trying to get the NHS back on its feet. He did face questions about his spending plans and how he would sort of increase spending in certain things like the NHS without raising people's taxes. That's obviously been a key attack line from the Conservatives, who have accused Labour of wanting to put up taxes, something that they have denied. But one of the things which I think is slightly haunting Sir Keir Starmer in this campaign is he was asked again, as he was in the last debate, about why he backed Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party and his manifesto in the last general election.
And you've also campaigned for Jeremy Corbyn to be Prime Minister.
Campaigning for the Labour Party. I was a Labour politician. I wanted to be re-elected, and I wanted good colleagues to be re-elected.
Just answer this
Some of the people around the cabinet, shadow cabinet table, were people whose seats were saved because we campaigned hard for the Labour Party.
Just answer this yes or no. When you said Jeremy Corbyn would make a good Prime Minister, did you?
Look, he would be a better Prime Minister. Well, look what we got, Boris Johnson.
That was the Labour leader defending why he stood in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet. Now, speaking of being pushed on your record, lots of the questions that the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak faced were about his record, about a lack of trust in the Conservative Party in particular. He said that his biggest regret was wishing that the Conservatives had made more progress on NHS waiting lists, which of course have risen under his leadership. He did kind of face lots of questions about a lack of trust, particularly from young people as well. He defended it, saying that people could trust him because the country had done an extraordinary thing for his family. He also mentioned his national service policy and faced quite a lot of scepticism about that, I think, from the audience, particularly because he couldn't really give a definitive answer on what sanctions there would be for people who don't agree to do it, saying in slightly vague terms that young people's driving licences or access to finance could be affected if they refuse to do national service. But I think one of the most difficult moments for Rishi Sunak was when he was asked about some of the latest gambling allegations rocking the Conservative Party.
These investigations are ongoing. They are rightly confidential. One of them is a criminal investigation that's been conducted by the police. These are very serious matters.
Talk about the two party candidates.
All I can say is they are serious investigations. It's right that they are done thoroughly, confidentially. The integrity of that process should be respected. But what I can tell you is if anyone is found to have broken the rules, not only should they face the full consequences of the law, I will make sure that they are booted out of the Conservative Party.
Thank you very much, Ione. Well, let's stay with that last point that was illustrated by the extract there from the Prime Minister. Our politicians are in what's described as the spin room in York. They're tasked to explain, elaborate or excuse what their respective leaders have said tonight. Spinning for Mr Sunak is Kevin Hollingbrake, Minister of State for Enterprise Markets and Small Business. Mr Hollingbrake, good evening to you. The Prime Minister gave his response to the question about the gambling allegations that have been made. I mean, these are claims of criminal offences. One police officer has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, and the other offences are those created under, I think, the 2005 piece legislation which makes it an offence to cheat when you are gambling. 2 people heavily involved with the Conservative Party are under investigation for that. The question which the Prime Minister didn't seem able to answer was why it wasn't considered appropriate to suspend people under investigation for criminal acts.
I think he's very clear about the action he would take if these allegations were proven. He said he would kick them out of the Tory party.
The trouble is that denies the voters the right to decide, doesn't it? Because they are having to cast votes for someone who is under investigation, not knowing whether or not they are actually guilty of anything.
Well, I think it's very careful about denying people the right of presumption of innocence, and that's a very important principle that runs through our society, quite rightly.
Let's turn to another question that has come up this evening, albeit not in the debate, and that is, given your responsibility for the Postal Service, the news that there has been yet another problem at the Post Office, this time data leak of a significant amount of information, names, addresses and so on, of people who were prosecuted by the Post Office. I wonder what you make of that.
Yeah, I thought it was disgraceful that that's happened. I read about it like everybody else, and I was informed by my private office today about it, and the questions asked about exactly what has happened, why that's happened. It's just unacceptable, that kind of data breach.
What questions are you asking? What questions are you asking?
Who leaked it, and how the breach came to happen, how that information was publicised.
Do you think it was consciously leaked?
So we don't manage, I have no idea about that, we don't manage directly the Post Office. We now have a new chair of the Post Office, Nigel Railton, who I have a very high regard for. I'm sure he'll be asking very serious questions of the management of the Post Office this evening, quite rightly, but this needs to get to the bottom of this in proper fashion, and the decider who's responsible act accordingly.
We also have news tonight. The BBC has learned that the former Energy Minister, your former colleague Chris Skidmore, who authored the government's Net Zero Review, has announced he's going to be voting Labour on the 4th of July because, quote, he cannot vote for a party that has boasted of new oil and gas licences in its manifesto, or that argues that net zero is a burden and not a benefit. How disappointed are you by his announcement?
I think he's entirely wrong. I mean, what the Prime Minister did when he set out how we're going to make getting to net zero more affordable for people, for households, particularly those on low incomes, we did not change the targets we have set for our decarbonisation, either by 2030 or by 2050. We're still getting to 68% reduction in carbon emissions compared to 1990 levels.
But he's specific
by 2030. No, and to net zero by 2050. Those are set in tablets of stone.
But he's specific I'm sorry to interrupt, but he's specific in saying that Rishi Sunak, because of his rhetoric, has sided with the climate deniers. And not only that, he says he's put out deliberate misinformation on the cost of net zero.
Well, I think is entirely wrong. What Rishi Sunak has done is made sure that getting to net zero is more affordable for everyday people. That's the right thing to do. So we still meet their objectives, our very ambitious objective. We're still the G7 nation with the best record of decarbonisation. We've still got those ambitious targets to hit net zero by 2050 and 68% reduction by 2030. All he's saying is that we don't want to we'll make sure people buying a new car or refitting their boiler can do it affordably. That's what we've done. We're still setting the overall strategy, we're changing the tactics.
The Business Minister, thank you very much. Well, also in the spin room, spinning for Sir Keir Starmer, his Labour's Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. Mr. Streeting, good evening to you.
Good evening.
It didn't sound like the audience were that impressed by Sir Keir Starmer's explanation for why he had described Jeremy Corbyn as a man who would make a great Prime Minister in the run-up to the 2019 election. Because it seemed to amount to saying that the question didn't really arise because I didn't think we were going to win the election.
Well, the truth is that in 2019 the country was given a choice between the devil and the deep blue sea with Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson, and people like Keir Starmer, who, let's not forget, was one of the vast majority of Labour MPs who voted no confidence in Jeremy Corbyn, resigned from his front bench. People like Tom Watson and Jeremy Corbyn made a decision.
You're really rewriting history now, aren't you? Keir Starmer stood shoulder to shoulder with Jeremy Corbyn up to that point. He said he'd make a great Prime Minister. Gone after the event, turned around and said, well, actually, he thought he was terrible. Or indeed use Keir's apparent justification, which is because I didn't believe it was ever going to happen. It was okay to say it. Because that's basically dishonest, isn't it?
Well, let me tell as one of the rebels who was on the outside throughout that period, that Keir Starmer, Tom Watson, people like that in the shadow cabinet were people that were trying from the inside to prevent the Labour Party from experiencing an extinction level event. Now, in the end, in 2019, we had a near-death experience, but thanks to Keir Starmer, we are now in a position where the Labour Party has fundamentally changed, there's no doubt about that. He's not only reconnected the Labour Party with voters and communities that we should never have lost faith with, he has also broadened Labour's appeal to offer a safe harbour for millions of Conservative voters, many of them lifelong Conservative voters, who are appalled by what they have seen in the Conservative Party and are looking for a credible alternative they can have faith in.
Can you offer us some clarification of what exactly Sir Keir Starmer meant when he said that landlords who are renting property will no longer be permitted to engage in a bidding or to carry out a bidding between potential tenants? What exactly will ensure that that does not happen?
We will make sure that the price that's advertised is the price that tenants get in their contracts. We will legislate for that to make sure that the rental price that's advertised is the price that renters pay. Because
how soon are they government? Because your manifesto covers 5 years. I mean, we've had a lot of promises with government, for example, that is currently trying to get re-elected, where it said reduce certain policies, and then they only happen right at the end of a parliament, and you have years waiting for the change. Are you able to guarantee that that will happen in, let's say, the first 2 years of a Labour government?
Look, quite honestly, I don't know exactly what the legislative timetable is. I don't know, and I'm under pain of death not to start promising things in the first 100 days or the first 12 months.
I would be very sorry to we were responsible for
I don't want Lucy Power in you tomorrow morning and shadow you leave the house to tell me on.
Let's talk about area you were responsible for, the NHS. Sir Keir said Labour has a fully costed workforce plan for the NHS, but your manifesto doesn't actually include the 35% pay rise that junior doctors are asked for, any pay rise. Given the problem of recruitment, how are you going to meet that fully costed workforce?
So, look, two things. We've always said that we would be willing to negotiate with the junior doctors, and that's both on pay and again, here, I thought one of the themes of tonight actually, and it applies to this issue specifically too, Keir has been very honest with people about the tough choices this side of the election. So you remember last week in the Sky debate, Keir said very honestly to a junior doctor in the audience, well, look, we can't give you 35%, the money isn't there, but we would be willing to negotiate. And to be fair to the junior doctor in that audience, and to be fair to the BMA Junior Doctors Committee, who I met recently, they're prepared to move on the number on the pay too. And there are lots of other issues in terms of the terms and conditions that junior doctors work under, their rotations, their placements, where I'm confident we can make progress. And that's one of the reasons I said to the junior doctors that call off these strikes during the general election campaign. You're not going to get any luck from the Conservatives, and I don't want junior doctors to be out of pocket, and I don't want patients to be suffering counter appointments. Okay. Let's sit down after the election if there is change with the Labour government and see if we can cut a deal.
Let me ask you, I was talking at the top of the programme about the range of polling outcomes. The only poll, as you doubtless tell me, that matters is the poll on election day, although of course that has already started with postal votes and all the rest of it being cast. But in terms of the risk for Labour, and the risk more importantly for the voters, given this record of U-turns by Sir Keir, shifts of position on policy, how can the public be confident, can they indeed be confident, that if they were to reward Labour with a large majority, that it would radically change course again?
I think two things. Firstly, you saw tonight the tough choices and the honest trade-offs that Keir Starmer and the rest of us have made this side of the election about what made the cut in the manifesto and what didn't, how we're going to pay for our policies and how we're going to deliver them, what we are prepared to do and what we can't commit to doing because of those tough choices.
Wes Treating, Shadow Health Secretary in York, thank you very much. And tomorrow night we'll hear how the debate over immigration is playing out when Jamie Cumberazami reports from Lincolnshire. Now, we're still keen to reflect the election issues that matter to you in the remaining 2 weeks of our coverage, especially if you're an undecided voter. So tell us with a text, 84844 is the number. Network providers charge between £10 and 15 pence. That's 84844. Our WhatsApp number is 03700 100 444. That's 03700 100 444. Or you can email world.tonight@bbc.co.uk. world.tonight@bbc.co.uk. Coming up later.
I think we've got to start with the realization that this is going to be a very competitive, very difficult rivalry between these two countries for a long time to come.
Washington's man in China, Nick Burns, tells Laura Becker why the two countries are talking more than ever of the geopolitical tussle he says could define the 21st century. But before that, in the 9 months since the Hamas attack on Israel, which prompted the Israeli military operation against them in Gaza, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari has become the public face of the Israeli Defense Forces. The elimination of Hamas, a group designated by the UK and a number of other countries as a terrorist organisation, has been among the key objectives of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So why has Admiral Hagari told Israel's Channel 13 broadcaster that Hamas is an ideology? We cannot eliminate an ideology. Well, David Mencer is a spokesman for the government. He was speaking after Admiral Hagari's interview was broadcast.
We're winning in Gaza. We're taking this organisation apart. We won't stop until it's done. The idea that Hamas will stay in power in Gaza is a non-starter.
Well, there's public evidence of a division between the politicians who started the war and the military who are trying to finish it. Jonathan Conricus is himself a former international spokesperson for the IDF. He appeared on this programme in the early months of the war, in fact, and he now works at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies, a think tank in Washington, DC. Jonathan Conricus, good to speak to you again.
Thank you.
Let me ask first of all, what did you make of Daniel Hagari's remarks? In essence, is it correct?
Yes, good evening. I think that in essence he is correct, and what he's basically telling is reflecting growing frustration in the military that there needs to be a coherent plan from the elected government on exactly what the day after in Gaza would look like from an Israeli perspective. That's what he's basically saying, and I think that Admiral Hagari is a very honest man and he enjoys tremendous trust in the Israeli public. He spells it out quite clearly. I do, however, regret the way that it was said, because it gives, for those who weren't paying attention closely, it gives the enemy quite a lot of tailwinds and a boost in its morale, which is something that is better not done while you're fighting.
He has clearly made a calculation in stating this. It's even more explicit, arguably, with another remark he made, which was to say that we are going to make Hamas disappear is to throw sand in people's eyes. And that does sound like a fairly direct rebuke of the Prime Minister and other political leaders who've kind of basically indulged in this rhetoric for most of the last 9 months, but don't seem much closer to achieving that objective.
Well, here I differ a bit. I believe, and I think that the establishment, IDF, Internal Security Agency, Ministry of Defense, etc., everybody understands that there is no day after in Gaza unless Hamas is first defeated militarily, and then a different system is put in place that has the ability to govern, that has the logistic and financial capability, and that enjoys both local and international legitimacy.
So do you think that the mistake there from the government's point of view is that it has not come up with such a plan, that it's just effectively saying we will carry on fighting, and indeed now say we're going to open a second front against Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Well, that is probably what Admiral Hagari was insinuating too, but it must, we have to be clear. I think that it's right. The situation here on the ground is that
that was a lovely drive home on this longest day of 2024, the summer solstice. Very enjoyable indeed. There we are, darlings. There we are. And we can look forward to a better day tomorrow. Certainly going to be a better day for the garden, isn't it? All right, my lovelies, that's it for today. Thank you for your company. As always, wouldn't be the same without you. Have a safe and peaceful night. Have the best day that you possibly can tomorrow. Much love from me, and I'll see you next time. Pichu, and indeed, bosh.